Hey guys, it's Chris Lafoyd, and I am here doing my first video of the March 2011 format, and it is of Frog Monarchs. If people say that Frog Monarchs are bad, you can build this deck and prove them wrong, because this deck beats Gekuri option, that bug end of the world thing. It beats True 6 Sam. It beats everything in this format. So it's one of those quiet decks that should be number one, just no one likes to run it. So I'm just going to show you the deck list. 3 Swap Frog. 3 Swap Frog is pretty much mandatory because it gets everything in your grave that you need. Ronin Totem, Dupe Frogs if you need Dupe Frogs for the Ronin Totem, and your Treeborn. So it's kind of setting up your whole graveyard. 3 Dupe Frog. This can be removed for Ronin Totem, and if you have 2 on the field, lock down your opponent. 3, you definitely lock them down. Tributes for practically anything except Lad and Monarchs. You can still get your search for Swap Frog, which you get just by it being sent to the graveyard. So it's good. 2 Treeborn. 3 is too much, just because you're going to end up having all 3 in the graveyard, and you can only summon 1 at a time. There's not that many stuff that can remove these guys anymore. Like, no one's really siding DD Crow that much. I'm not seeing it a lot. So 2 is good, just in case. 1 Ronin Totem. Ronin Totem isn't that big of a card in the deck. It's just something extra if you need a 2nd tribute for Lad or a 3rd tribute for Obelisk. And it can get rid of your huge grave if you need to. Level Eater. This guy, some people will tell you to take him out if you run him, but this guy goes great in the deck. He's like an alternate Treeborn who gets to keep on coming back just as long as you have Monarchs, pretty much. So he's awesome. But you can't tribute him for Econ, though. That's the only limitation. 2 Battle Fader. 3 is okay. 1 is inconsistent, so I prefer 2. But Battle Fader is your main defense because you don't want any traps, and you also have a tribute for a Monarch next turn. 3 Caius. Just like a staple, best Monarch, in my opinion. You get to remove a card on the field, and if it's a dark, which most of the time it is, your opponent takes 1,000, and he's a 24 beater. 3 Ryza. He's probably the 2nd best Monarch, in my opinion. Puts them in perfect circle. Like, if they have a useless card, you can just send it back to the top of their deck, and they have to draw it again, and they can't do anything about your 2400 beater. Again. 2 Thestalos. Thestalos is a great thing to open up turn 1, because your opponent will only up with 5 cards in their hand on their first turn. So you can go like Swap Frog, and then you have your grave set up, and you have Thestalos on the field. So he's pretty good, and he's also amazing in this format just in general, so I run 2. 1 Mobius. Some people prefer Jinzo, but Mobius can get rid of those spells that like Book of Moon if it's set and they don't want to activate it or something. It can get rid of a Gateway if you're playing True 6 Sam or something. Vanity's Fiend, 1 of them. This not only locks down your opponent, but it kind of locks you down as well. I only run one. Sorry, I can't talk today. But because it not only locks your opponent down, like it locks you down, like I said. So you can't go into any more Monarchs once this is out on the field until you like tribute it, or your opponent tries to get rid of it so they can try and beat you easier. 1 Cyber Dragon. Cyber Dragon is a great thing. It's kind of like a Monarch in a way, and it can, if you're playing against the rare Machina Gadget or possibly Gekuri option, then you can play this thing You can contact, and it's also, you can special summon it and tribute it for Monarch if you have no cards on your field. Trigodia. This is kind of like an extra battle fader, but not as protective. It's amazing how it can be, like, you can just take control of an opponent's monster by discarding a card. Like, if you're playing Kikuri option, I'm talking about that a lot today, you can discard Gores to take their, not Burrito, but the other guy, I forgot his name, and then you contribute that for your Monarch. 2 Light and Darkness Dragon. 3 is too much, so 2 is pretty consistent. Like I said, just like Vanity's Fiend, it not only locks your opponent down, it also locks you down. And 1 Obelisk. People might not prefer to run an Obelisk and would rather run a 3rd Lad or a 3rd Battle Fader or a 3rd Thestalos over it, but Obelisk is probably the only reason this deck can pull off wins sometimes, is I can just go into a bunch of stuff and just use it instead of protection, just tribute them for Obelisk for the win. Staples: Dark Hole, Monster Reborn, Giant, Trunade, and MST. Just like in most decks. Soul Exchange and another Soul Exchange. It's kind of like tribute your opponent's monster to summon a Monarch and get rid of more of your opponent's cards. So it's pretty good. 2 Econ. The only reason Econ is in practically all Frog Monarch decks is during standby phase. When you summon Treeborn, you can Econ, tribute Treeborn, take control of your opponent's monster, and you special summon Treeborn back again. You can go into a Lad or a Monarch. So 3 is actually a little too much. 2 is very consistent. So I like 2. Foolish to get rid of Level Eater or anything else, pretty much. 1 for 1, discard a Frog or a Treeborn that's sitting in your hand to get out Battle Fader, Level Eater, or Treeborn for a Monarch. Great first turn summon. Moray of Greed, extra draw power. I only run 1 because you're running so many Monarchs. And Pot of Avarice, you're just going to end up with so many cards in your grave, you're going to want to run that. And it's for extra draw power. And finally, Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon, just a staple in every deck, especially in this one, because you're running Cyber Dragon in it. So, it's good. It's a good deck. Just like all my other videos, it's not a set deck list. You can edit it as you want, but it's done me pretty well. I personally like the build better than my Machina Gadget, and I'm just hoping that September 1st and many more formats to come does not bring it misery, just like I wanted for Machina Gadgets. So, the only thing that's hit it so far is the Substitute, but that's it, and it still runs pretty well. So see you later, YouTube.